Hello, and welcome to the Good News from the Corner podcast. I'm Jay. I'm your podcast host, and I'm also the rector at St. John's Episcopal Church in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm glad you found us. I'm glad you're here. Stay tuned for sermons, lectures, and more good news from the corner of Central and Greer. I will go ahead and begin to tell you a little bit about what I've been after. I guess apologies to David Zahl. I'm going to be his parrot tonight, talking about some I think pretty important facts about what it means to live faithfully today. So let us pray. Gracious God, we give you thanks for life in this place and for the good news that has been given in your Son and for the promises that you have made to us. And we ask that you would teach us to follow you all the more closely, and in the midst of the religions that compete for our attention, might we keep our eyes, our ears, and our hearts tuned to you. These things we ask in the name of your Son. Amen. So if you can think back a couple of years ago, it was on January the 24th of 2024 that National Public Radio posted a story entitled, "Religious Nuns Are Now the Largest Single Group in the United States." N-O-N-E, not N-U-N, nuns. Nuns, as in no religious affiliation. A study from Pew Research found that 28% of people, when asked, will now indicate that their religious affiliation is, "I don't have a religious affiliation." This is now the single largest cohort in the United States. It is more prevalent than the number of Americans who self-identify as Catholic, which is 23% of the population. Or the evangelical or Protestants, who self-report 24% of Americans are evangelical Protestants. I know for a fact that these stories of decline, resonate with you. Over the years, I've gotten clippings from the Wall Street Journal and emails from many of you pointing to the changes that we are now living in, shaking your head in dismay, right? This decline narrative is one that I think hooks us, right? It taps into our fears, and it adds fuel to the fire of the saying, well, things just aren't what they used to be. Our denomination, the Protestant Episcopal Church in the United States of America, if you can imagine, we are the star student of these conversations of decline. As recently as 1981, there were 3.1 million Episcopalians in the U.S., and the 2023 parochial report names 1.5 million as the total number of Episcopalians, with a modal age of 69. I didn't take statistics in college, but I understand modal to mean if you were to pull a single person from the entire Episcopal Church data set membership, they would most likely be 69 years old. Someone else smarter than me will have to explain that better than I can. Further, baptisms, marriages, and burials, confirmations, and receptions, though slightly increasing in the years following the 2020 pandemic, are now also trending down. Interestingly enough, though, the money is slightly up. So we are a denomination that is richer than we were 5 years ago, even though there are fewer of us out there, and we are on average aging. So really one of the first things that I wonder about is this money, right? As Episcopalians, how can we fund meaningful ministry if we are in a position to have more money? Call it what it is. How can we fund mission work to increasingly neo-pagan North America? I know these numbers better in the Episcopal Church, and I can tell you that I share with you some anxiety about our denomination, but it is not just us. According to a Gallup poll published in March of 2024, on any given Sunday, only 3 in 10 Americans will worship in a church, synagogue, mosque, or temple. Interestingly, it is the Mormons who remain the most active in their religious practices, and both Jewish and Muslim American worship attendance numbers have slightly increased. I don't know what that means, it's just data. So I guess the question for us tonight is, what in the world is going on with people? Further, what in the world is going on with the church? I'll have to tell you on the front end, I don't buy the argument that religious faith is dead. While I find numbers like the ones I've shared with you alarming, I don't buy the view that people have suddenly stopped being religious. I believe that people are as starved as they have ever been for meaning and for purpose. And I also believe that the church has not served the average seeker very well. I believe that the idea marketplace that has been largely closed since Constantine made Christianity the state religion of the Roman Empire in 313 BC, the religious ideas marketplace is wide open as it's been in 1700 years. And I believe that people have taken that religious drive that is wired into us as human beings, and they're taking their business elsewhere. To say it in another way, I think people are what they have always been. The church has declined as people are attempting to find, I should say, meaning and purpose in other venues. As I say, trying to find meaning and purpose in other venues. And this is, I think, where David Zahl's thinking is helpful. This book, Seculosity, that I'm going to be talking a bit about tonight. Specifically, David names what happens now that the religious impulses that are, I think, hardwired into us as human beings are now applied horizontally to that which we can see rather than vertically. And yes, we can thank you, the decline of the institutional church, for this change. These numbers that I've talked about, religion with a capital R has declined. Yes, the statistical data for mainline Christianity is clear. However, as I say, I think people have remained the same. Consciously or subconsciously, we are in fact meaning-making and seeking creatures. We want to know where we come from. We want to know that we matter to someone, to anyone, to God. And Zahl writes, our particular needs that are addressed by religion with a capital R remain very much the same. The human being's basic need for hope, purpose, connection, justification, hold on to that word, we'll loop back in a second, and what he calls enoughness. We want to know that we are enough. We want to know that we matter. I think that our basic drivers as human beings are hope, purpose, connection, justification, and enoughness. And that has not changed, though religion with a capital R has changed. We are after the same old basic need fulfillment from your introduction to psychology class that you took your fall semester of your college experience, right? We've just found other tools that we now try to use and fill the gaps that have been left exposed as the church has declined. And David Zahl comes up with a new word, seculosity, which is a play on the word secular, right? So we are trying to make sense of the world, and we're trying to find that elusive sense of fulfillment right here on earth, in our relationships, in our work, in what we eat, and how we vote, and countless others. Seculosity is a religious practice directed at earthly rather than heavenly objects. Now a bit about that word that we left off a few minutes ago. When we apply the religious impulse to things heavenly rather than earthly rather than heavenly, justification is something like this. It's like standing before a judge and you've driven there in the right car and you're wearing the right clothes and you have the right school and club memberships on the dashboard of your car and you have the perfect haircut. And you're having a really positive body image day, so you like yourself. And you've just had a full day of meetings where you've had a great deal of money coming in, and you have a perfect love life, And the most extraordinary dinner is going to follow after this appearance with the judges, this dinner with your friends, and you're standing in front of this judge. Everything is perfect, and you hear, "Not guilty." Or perhaps, "Yes, you may enter." It takes an incredible amount of work. And I'd say that it's impossible to do it all. And thus, enoughness remains elusive. To be clear about our terms, the good news of Jesus Christ teaches us that in that same courtroom, he has been our witness, our advocate, our defender, and when the sentence comes, he says, "I will take his place for him." This is how we are justified. God has given us the gift of his own life. The other word that I would ask you to hold in your mind tonight describes that first courtroom scene again, and that word is righteousness. Seen in this first sense, it is the idea that enoughness is possible with a correct set of behaviors and things. If you have the right partner, job, and life, you will be enough. You will feel satisfied. The good news of Jesus Christ teaches that God has saved on our behalf. And now that God has acted by God's grace, we pray for the strength to live Christ-shaped lives, even old sinners like me. When we get the source of our enoughness from the wrong place, when we believe we can demonstrate the correct behaviors and own the correct things, we have fallen into a bottomless trap. David Zahl writes, "You will hear about people scrambling to be successful enough, happy enough, thin enough, wealthy enough, influential enough, desired enough, charitable enough, woke enough, good enough." We believe instinctually that were we to reach some benchmark in our minds, that then value, vindication, and love would be ours. That if we got enough, we would be enough. But here's the wrinkle, one so well worn it hardly bears mentioning. No matter how close we get or how much we achieve, we never arrive at enough. Our lives attest to the that this threshold does not exist, at least not where fallible and finite human beings are concerned. Instead, the world that we live in is one where people are suffering and dying under the torture of the fantasy self that they're failing to become. When we are responsible for finding our meaning, purpose, and value, we drive to validate our existence and assert our lovability. We step upon the endless treadmill that only gets faster and steeper with each passing moment. How in the world has this come to pass? That drive to feel like we're enough is the fundamental human condition, I think. For 2,000 years, religion with a capital R has been the shared experience of most of humanity. With religion with a capital R in decline, the position we find ourselves in now is there are countless numbers of replacement religions with a lowercase r that are now filling the empty space caused by the decline of religion with a capital R. Does that make sense, that distinction? David Zahl writes, "These new religions go by different names, but function more or less the same, maintaining all of the demand and much of the ritual, but none of the mercy of the capital R variety. If we used to go to church once a week, we now go every hour, and it is exhausting, to put it mildly." Tonight, we'll spend the balance of our time talking a bit about common ways that we've turned our religious impulses on its axis over to the horizontal rather than looking to the heavens. And I don't know that you'll see yourself in every one of these replacement religions, but no one, even good Christian people like you and me, are immune from this stuff. This is not an exhaustive list, but once you train your eye to see it, you'll see that there are new religions and new orthodoxies all around us. So just a couple of examples. The seculosity of busyness. How many of you have had this conversation? How are you? I'm busy. How are you? I'm so busy my hair is on fire. Right? Does that sound familiar? Well, Wouldn't it be nice if we had a few more hours in the day? We could do more. Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't have it any other way, though, would you? No, it's perfect. Does this sound familiar? We're busy. The most striking thing about this, I want to show you this. This is an image. If you were in your 20s, I'd probably be laughed out of the building for showing a printed copy of a meme. But this is a meme. If you can see here, this is Cruella de Vil from the 101 Dalmatians, and she looks stark raving mad. And the meme says, me trying to excel in my career, maintain a social life, drink enough water, exercise, text everyone back, survive, and be happy. And we hang on with our knuckles white, like raving lunatics, right? The most striking thing to me about this meme, it's clever, number one, obviously, but the fact that nearly 77,000 people shared it. Another 53,000 people liked it. It tells you just how accurate that is, right? It speaks to our experience. Why do we talk like this? Why does this meme speak to us? And I think it's because we have conflated being busy with having value. To be busy is to be valuable. It's to be desired. It's to be justified. It signals importance and therefore enoughness. Busy is not just how we are, but who we are or who we'd like to be. David Zahl argues that busyness has now become a virtue. He writes, the more frantic activity, the better. The implication, of course, is that if we are not overoccupied, we are inferior to those who are. Busyness reveals one of the hallmarks of seculosity, and that is one of, David Zahl has this great way of making up words that work. One of the hallmarks of seculosity is performanceism. It's performance with an ism on the back of it. I went to college too. Performanceism is the assumption, usually unspoken, that there is no distinction between who we are and what we do. Your resume isn't part of your identity, it is your identity. What makes you lovable, indeed what makes your life worth living, is your performance at X, Y, or Z. Performanceism holds that if you are not doing enough or doing well enough, you are not enough. At least you are less than those who are killing it. Think about how this differs from what the church has historically been, right? The church is quiet. The church is repetitive. The church is slow. And the church is a place that we go to receive rather than produce. Another form of seculosity is the seculosity of romance. Think about any wedding that you've ever been to. How do people talk about the bride and the groom? They were made for each other. This is a match made in heaven. He used to be a wild guy, but now she makes him whole, right? This is the way we talk about a man and a woman being married, right? Y'all have heard that stuff at weddings. Our reason for marriage has changed from its historical purposes. Where before marriage was pragmatic and economic, we now marry for desire and attraction. And this former thing is called a marriage of reason. It's the reason why, if you've been to a wedding in the Episcopal Church, the priest stands in front of the bride and groom and issues the charge saying, I require and charge you both here in the presence of God that if either one of you know any reason why you may not be married lawfully, speak now or forever hold your peace. And the reason that we do that is because probably far more recently than we would acknowledge, a woman's hand in marriage went along with a parcel of land or cattle. It would be a deal broker between the man and the father, right? That's a marriage of reason. That is not the way that we think about marriage now, I think, on average. Marriage now for us is because the man and woman are satisfied and fulfilled in their relationship. And don't please hear me say, on whole, this is obviously a good thing, right? It's obviously a great thing. I'd argue But there's lots of psychic garbage that is transferred in the way that we now think about our relationships. The more pressure we put on our relationships to provide transcendence, the less they will be able to deliver. Nowhere do we see romance cast as salvation more overtly than in the widespread notion that there is one special someone out there for each of us, a yin to our yang, a single person who holds the key to both our personal happiness and our ultimate fulfillment. No pressure, right? Marriage therapist Esther Pearl described it in this way, the challenge of being married in the modern world. We come to one person and we basically are asking them to give us what once an entire village used to provide. Give me belonging, give me identity, give me continuity, but give me transcendence and mystery and awe, all in one. Give me comfort, give me edge, give me novelty, give me familiarity, give me predictability, give me surprise. It's no small wonder that people struggle in relationships today. The seculosity of parenting. I can remember before my first child was born, all of the advice, all of the stacks of books that we read. You don't have a frame of reference for what's about to happen to you. All of these voices that you let into your head to learn how to be a mother or father. This kind of thing, when it is pursued to its end, can make one incredibly neurotic. The more opinions we absorb about how to parent well, the more expectations we find that we and our children are failing to meet, and the more ways in which we discover what we are doing and how we are doing it wrong. It's not just in the days before a child comes, nor in the early days when the parents work to ensure a healthy attachment for their children. We have all known them. We have secretly judged them. You know one when you see one. The dreaded helicopter parent, right? This is a religious undertaking in that we try to become the all-knowing and all-seeing God with total control of our children's world. This and other attempts to control the child's life are attempts to assuage the anxiety of parenting, attempt to assuage the anxiety that something very valuable to you has free will, and that it can or will be harmed by another, right? Intentional styles of parenting or neurotic compulsion both offer us a modicum of control over the terrifying chaos of life. It grants its adherent agency, soothing fears about all that goes bump in the night. If you can remember, this is not children or babies or small children. Recall just a few years back. Do you remember Operation Varsity Blues? Do you remember this story? The aunt from Full House and another celebrity were implicated in this college admissions scandal. What's her name? Felicity Huffman, right? Even if your children are happy, we suspect other parents are secretly passing judgment on our progeny for their perceived successes or failures based on college admissions. Katie Rofi writes, I can't help but wonder if all of the effort poured into creating the perfect child is a way of deflecting and rechanneling adult disappointment. Are these parents so virtuously exhausted, so child drained at the end of one of these busy days, compensating for something else that they have given up, something missing from their marriage, some romantic disappointment, some compromise of career or adventure? Finally, we cannot get out of here tonight without talking about politics, or the seculosity of politics. David Zahl writes, with the possible exception of career, politics has become today's most popular replacement religion, certainly the one with the most forward momentum and cultural currency. It's crucial, again, that we keep in mind that distinction between religion with a capital R and its decline and the smaller replacement religions that have filled the empty space. Zahl writes, according to every metric available, our society has never been more divided by politics. We are less likely than ever to have friends who vote differently from us, and more likely to choose where we live based on our neighbor's vote. I find this so fascinating. In the late 1950s, when American parents were asked how they would feel if their child were to date someone from another political party, fewer than 10% indicated it would be a problem. In 2010, that number had more than quadrupled to 40%. God only knows what it would be today, Zahl writes. If once upon a time we looked to politics primarily for governance, we now look to it for belonging, for righteousness, for meaning and deliverance. In other words, all of the things that we used to rely on religion for. Of our need for belonging, Zahl writes, so fundamental is our need for connection that when belonging isn't readily found in conventional spheres like church, neighborhood, office, or home, we look elsewhere and anywhere for it. To counteract our loneliness, we will fashion a family out of whatever resources we have at hand. It is no coincidence then that politics serve a tribal function for more and more people. Because when you share an ideological affiliation, you share not only stories and foundations, but antagonisms. And nothing bonds people closer together than a common enemy. Politics as a replacement religion is contingent on the abiding belief that politics can fix it. We who long for salvation, we who long for knowing that we're enough, we have fallen into the trap of believing that politics can save us. Far more defeating is the idea that it can be, but we're still waiting for the right system or leader to come along, or it could be, if only those other people over there would get out of the way. After Donald Trump's first election and the waves that rippled through this country, a social scientist mined the Google search data. It's fascinating if you ever look this stuff up. He wrote, when people were waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, meaning after Trump's election, when people were waking up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat, their searches were about their jobs, their health, and their relationships. They were not concerned about the Muslim ban or global warming. And David Zahl, who was the son of an Episcopal priest and the brother to an Episcopal priest and is himself on staff at an Episcopal church, pointed out something that really kind of caught me sideways, but he's absolutely right. He pointed out that there is not one person that he has ever known, or I would say that I have ever known, who has been compelled to talk on their deathbed about politics. There isn't a liberal or conservative person in that hospital room, just a human being. To conclude, these are just some of the ways that our religious impulse, when applied across the horizon to things that we can see can go wrong. With the decline of the institutional church, these ways of practicing religion have increased such that we might go to church once a week, but piety and righteousness are everywhere. He assumes our question, one that is perhaps on your mind tonight: what do we do about seculosity? David Zahl argues the doing is the problem. The doing is what is contributing to the difficulty of life in the 21st century. We who have placed ladders for our ascent everywhere that we turn and are yet disturbed by the space between our rungs as compared to other more successful and happy neighbors, we want to work our way out of the mess that we are in right now. Unfortunately, or thankfully, we are a people united in a religion of grace and mercy. We fall into the same trap if we say to ourselves, if we do X, Y, Z, then the church will grow again or thrive again. For this reason, a grace-centered Christianity would not balk from heralding at full volume, and without fingers crossed, the good news is that nothing that needs to be done hasn't already been done. It would emphasize the counterintuitive announcement that enoughness is a gift given freely to those who insist on paying, and at a great cost to the giver. The only scorekeeping that matters has come to an end, regardless of how we might feel in this moment. Thank you. So, a couple of things. Thanks for tuning in today. You've been listening to the Good News from the Corner podcast. St. John's Episcopal Church is located at the corner of Central and Greer in Memphis, Tennessee. Our parish website is www.stjohnsmemphis.org. You can also catch us on all of the normal social media platforms. You can join us for church at 10:30 on Sunday morning on our St. John's Memphis YouTube channel. Share the Good News podcast with somebody. And remember, you matter to God. Your life is not yours alone. Come see us sometime.